Lincoln Legends, Lore and Lagniappe presented by your Lincoln Parish Museum and Historical Society, celebrating 50 years of community support. Enjoy as our museum director, Rick Godley, takes the time to capture the stories of life in Lincoln Parish from the characters of Lincoln Parish. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rick Godley, the director of the Lincoln Parish Museum, and we are sitting in the back room. I have my guest, Christopher Kennedy, who has written another book. We're going to talk about it, but we're sitting in front of the Clarence and Louise Falk collection, which is a fascinating collection, and I encourage folks to come on by the Lincoln Parish Museum, look at that and all the other things we have here, plus invite you to a special date we're going to be having April 10th. This gentleman, Christopher, is going to be giving a Chautauqua on his latest book. It is Louisiana Tech's Dave Nitz, the voice of the Bulldogs. And Christopher, welcome in, my friend. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing very well as well. The last book that Christopher has written, or is that the only book you have written, the Joe I.A., From an Orphan Train to the College Football Hall of Fame, that's the only other book? Good. So, which is an awesome book, by the way. And how's that going?
It's going pretty well. I was very satisfied with the sales for the first year, and I'll have it available at all my book signings for Dave Nitz.
So we're going to have Christopher here. He's going to be on a book signing tour here locally, and the website you want to go to is cakennedyauthor.com, cakennedyauthor.com to find out more, and we'll give you the Facebook later on. So you did Joe I.A. When did the idea come to you to say, you know what, I think I want to write a book about Dave Nitz? When did that come to you?
That came to me when Dave came to me and asked me to help him out. So
all I have to do is ask for you to book about Rick Godley, and you'll do that? Is that? No, that's fine. Let's stay focused on Dave. All right, so when did Dave, because Dave just retired, a year and a half ago? When did he approach you? Prior to that?
My first book signing for Joe I.A. in 2022, he came up and he knew I wrote the Joe I.A. book, and he had already had this idea for himself planned out. He already had a lot of self-recorded tapes, so that really kind of helped me get a good start. Excellent, because this book is so full of more, how do I want to say it, closer history, because you got to interview Dave. You didn't get to interview Joe I.A. This is a really neat book, and it's a quick read. It's an insightful read, and I encourage folks to pick it up. So Dave approached you, and did you have to think about it, or was that one of those things you go like, man, this is good? I had to think about it a little bit. I knew he was in there's a book that's the 100 greatest college football calls, broadcasts, and I knew Dave was in that one, so I knew, and there was some behind the scenes stories with him and Coach Barmore and Carl Malone, so I kind of had a little bit of background, and I mean, my dad and I listened to him every time there was a away game for Tech. So I had a little bit of knowledge, but once I heard his self-recorded tapes, that really got me going.
So, man, that could be a whole podcast of the future, because Dave's literally, as you uploaded, his own story, correct?
Basically.
That is awesome. Now, so let's just dive into this a little bit. Louisiana Tech's Dave Nitz, and pretty much, I would say 80% of the people, that's the only voice they've ever known of Louisiana Tech, correct?
Right.
So, and he's not even from Louisiana. You want to go back just a little bit without going into too much detail, because we want people to buy the book. It is a very quick read, as I said. Take us back to his origin, because I do want to give homage to the person who got Dave here to Ruston and Louisiana Tech. Where's he from?
So he's from West Virginia, and he kind of traveled across the country, and really between Ohio and West Virginia, that's where he got started. And there was a lot of back and forth between there. And before coming to Tech, several colleges, I won't get into all of them, but
let's just say he came across some very influential people in college athletics when they were just getting started. And but when he came over here, that was 1974, and Dan Hollingsworth brought him over.
And you got, and that, let's just go right into Dan right now. Dan, the former radio station owner of KXKZ, which was the flagship, still is the flagship radio station for Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. But we're going to go down, take us through that story, because I want to make this statement, and you can correct me, that if it were not for Dan Hollingsworth, Dave Nitz would not be here.
Right, because at that time, basically, KRUS was all that there was that was covering tech. And even as far as KRUS goes, when Dave first got here, he really wanted to do more. And so he kind of helped develop tech coverage. And from KRUS, he would eventually go and start working full-time with Louisiana Tech.
Right. It's funny you bring up KRUS. KRUS Radio was initially owned by Clarence Falk, who owned not only KRUS Radio, but the Ruston Leader. And so here we're sitting in front of the Clarence and Louise Falk collection. So Dave, take us into that story, because it didn't happen overnight. So if I'm understanding you right, Dave was kind of being courted by some prestigious universities, but he kind of had this focus here for Louisiana Tech. Am I right?
Right.
How did that happen? And then, because there was a little delay in the process.
When he first came over here, he had already been interviewed with Dan Hollingsworth, and he didn't hire him initially. But a year after that, he came from Arkansas Tech over here. And I kind of, in the book, I have like a part 1 and a part 2 with Louisiana Tech. So basically 74 to early to mid 80s, because Dave his ultimate dream was to broadcast in the major leagues. And so he was doing minor league baseball, and that was going pretty well. But he was kind of hitting a ceiling. So he did broadcast some summer league baseball, but once he kind of hit that ceiling, kind of at an opportune time, President Taylor called him back and wanted him back at Tech. But then shortly after that, there were other universities that were interested. Syracuse was one. Tulane. I won't get into it.
No. But he opted to stay here.
Coach Boeheim, Jim Boeheim, he's very well-accomplished basketball coach at Syracuse. But Dave wanted to stay here ultimately. Kind of fell in love with Louisiana Tech.
It has that allure of Ruston, north central Louisiana, from, as you said in the book there, take me home country roads from where Dave was, although he wasn't in the big mountains where he grew up. So he came to the Piney Hills here in North Louisiana. Christopher Kennedy, our guest, the book, Louisiana Tech's Dave Nitz, the voice of the Bulldogs. I don't think I'd want to be the second voice of the Bulldogs. You can't fill these shoes.
It's very tough. We have some very quality broadcasters right now, but it's just really tough to replace 50 years of Dave Nitz.
Right. All right, so Christopher, you got to interview not only Dave, but Dan Hollingsworth, which, by the way, was the last interview that Dan ever gave before he passed on. And here's a man who did so much for the community with the radio stations, and then becoming mayor, I think, for 3 terms, and leaving Ruston in a great shape for Ronnie Walker to pick it up and accelerate it here, but that's for another show at another time. So as you're interviewing your guests for this book, give me one that stands out in your mind who you talked to that gave you a wealth of information that you're thinking, man, I didn't think I'd get that much out of that person.
It's really probably Coach Barmore, because I knew they had some history together, but they had some pretty interesting, some pretty wild stories.
Without going into detail, tease the audience of which wild story that Coach Leon Barmore said about Dave that intrigued you.
I had no idea that he and Dave almost died in an avalanche, basically, in Arizona. Most people.
I'm laughing at that.
I mean, most people don't think of snow in Arizona, much less a snowstorm, and you would probably think even less of a major college basketball coach almost succumbing to the weather.
That's Leo. So if you want more on that story, you want to get the book, Louisiana Tech's Dave Nitz, The Voice of the Bulldogs. It's up on Amazon, and Christopher's going to have multiple locations for that. I invite folks to come to the Lincoln Parish Museum. It'll be, is it a Thursday? Did we do it on Thursday? That's going to be April 10th, 6 p.m., book signing as well as Q&A. We're going to have a Chautauqua here. Christopher, what did you find out about Dave that you didn't know prior to getting into all of this? And you're like, man, that's pretty cool. Besides that story with Leon.
It's something that you would really kind of almost take for granted for that kind of position, but he just loves to travel. I mean, even pretty much up till recently, he'll drive cars for Enterprise if Enterprise needs to switch out a car. Mm-hmm. And so it's no problem for him to go to Oklahoma City and back in a day, like almost a day,
Right. So that's where Freeway Dave came from, or was it a fear of flying, or he just loved to keep the vehicles on the terra firma?
I think he just liked to drive.
Wow.
His son, Jay, is a truck driver, so it's kind of in the family. Mm-hmm. And maybe Jay or Jeff. But, yeah, it's just a love for travel. And there's a story about Freeway Dave, how that got started. We
won't go into there. You have to get the book yourself to find out more. Christopher Kennedy, the website is cakennedyauthor.com, cakennedyauthor.com. You can find out more on Facebook as well. It is Christopher A. Kennedy, author. Look him up on Facebook because, matter of fact, I went to the Tech ball game, and you're going to be at the Love Shack this coming weekend, which folks will watch this. It'll be later, but still, you're going to be out and about getting the book out.
April 4th and 5th.
April 4th and 5th. Do we want to find out what's percolating for the next book, or should we just let that lie and let this one grow?
Let's hold off for it.
We're going to hold off on that. All right, Christopher, thanks so much for coming by. All the best. We'll see you here at the Lincoln Parish Museum on Thursday, April 10th, 6 p.m. And folks, we thank you so much for watching. We thank you so much for supporting. This is our 50th year, the 50th anniversary of the Lincoln Parish Museum and Historical Society. We have a Facebook page. We have a YouTube page. So please follow the Facebook page. Lots of things are percolating here during our second renaissance of the Lincoln Parish Museum. I'm Rick Godley. This is Christopher Kennedy. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you for watching Lincoln Legends Lore and Lagniappe, presented by your Lincoln Parish Museum and Historical Society, celebrating 50 years of community support. Please follow us on Facebook for all future events as we celebrate our 50th anniversary this year. Thank you once again for your contributions of support. This has been a Godleyworks for Nonprofits production in association with Rick Godley's ATL Features. ATL stands for All Things Local. ATL also stands for All Things Lincoln.
Touchdown Bulldogs! You gotta love it!
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Please drive carefully and arrive home safely. Good night.